everyone. I'm Linda Nickell, and welcome to the Happiness Hour. Tonight, my guest is Jose Madrigal. Jose is a nature photographer who has mastered the art of photographing the tiny world of pollinators. His photos have been featured in numerous publications, including Texas Parks and Wildlife magazine. He enjoys teaching other aspiring photographers his techniques for capturing insects in flight and has taught webinars for brands like B&H Photo and Nisi, as well as in-person workshops at his private ranch in Central Texas. And if you're in the Texas area, please reach out to Jose and get on that ranch. I did it with a bunch of other people, and it was a lot of fun. All right, in tonight's presentation, Slow Ride, Jose will touch on the strategies, equipment, settings, and techniques he uses for capturing slow motion video of tiny insects in flight. He'll explain how he finds the best subjects and plans his approach, along with choosing the right camera settings. And if you're on Instagram, you can find him at jmad_images, and you can connect with him through his website, jmadimages.com, and I will link those in the show notes below. And with that, Jose, welcome back to the Happiness Hour.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
having me.
Thank you for
All right.
coming back. Y'all, this is probably Jose's. I always forget to go back and look. I think it's your fourth time with us. I may be wrong.
I think that's right.
Does that
Yes.
sound right? Okay, I was
Yep.
guessing, but I was trying to remember.
hmm
Not so good with the old age is setting in, y'all.
hmm
But thank you for coming back and
hmm
accepting the invitation to come in here and share what you know. Um,
Absolutely.
if I missed anything in your intro, you know how it works. Tell us all your deep dark secrets, and then um, show us some really cool stuff.
So
Yeah.
yeah, once again, Linda, thank you for having me. And as promised, I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. This is a one of my favorite slow motion videos here that I've captured thus far. This is uncropped basically, other than what it naturally crops on the display here. I think to 9:16 versus 2:3. So this dragonfly was very close to me when I captured this moment, and it's not repeating yet. I captured he was hovering right in front of me for about 15 seconds, and then so in slow motion it turned into at 10x slow mo 150 seconds. So figured I would start with this one and then just kind of go into why I've gotten into doing slow motion videography versus just photography. I was originally just very stubborn about wanting to stick with photography. I think really what I wanted to do was just really master the type of photography that I was trying to do and just really focus on doing that artistically. But yeah, I'll go into, like I said, some of these reasons here in just a moment. But first of all, let me tell you, for those of you guys that aren't familiar with me, this is a little bit about me. I've been known for my photography of insects in flight since about 2018. That's when I really got in heavy into macro photography, and had the good fortune within a few months of first beginning macro photography of having the editor of Texas Parks and Wildlife magazine contact me to use one of my photos for or several of my photos for a story they were doing on pollinators. And so that really kind of sealed it for me that it wasn't just something that I enjoyed doing, but it was something that I really had an eye for and that I had a knack for. And so that's kind of what got me started doing pollinator photography in particular, but then all insects in general. And I really like the chase. I really like the challenge of photographing insects in flight, and particularly on the camera that I had back then. It was the A7R III, And I now have the Sony A1 Mark II, which is a much more advanced camera. It's got a lot of really neat features that, in a lot of ways, have made it easier and a little less challenging. And so I think that I before I even recognized that, I wasn't feeling as excited about shooting. And when I started doing some videos, I really started finding that excitement again because I was finding it to be as challenging with this new camera and more advanced camera and more advanced lenses as it was shooting them with the old A7R III. And so it was just kind of reinvigorating my feeling of like that, okay, this is a good challenge and it's letting me kind of take it to that next level, which I want to feel like that especially if I'm doing teaching other people how to photograph insects in flight, like that I can definitely take you to whatever level that you're wanting to be able to photograph them at. A couple more things about me before I move on to talking more about these reasons for getting into videography. I shoot primarily, or well, only Sony cameras and lenses. If any of you are interested in reading tutorials about macro photography, I've written a few tutorials that are on naturettl.com. There's no spaces or underscores with that. It's just naturettl, like through the lens .com, and you can search under their macro photography tutorials. I've done 3 for them. And like Linda was mentioning, I also teach in-person workshops at my private ranch in Bryan College Station area, actually about 20 miles outside of there. Um, but I'll get a little more into that. I've got a fall workshop coming up, and I'll tell you guys all about that in just a little bit. So the reason why I've started doing slow motion videos, if I'm being completely honest, a lot of it comes to the way that social media has changed. All of you guys know, we were just talking about this a little bit ago when Ben mentioned, the having a difficult time getting traction with photos on social media, and it's just not like it was even 5 years ago, but even much more so 10 years ago. When I first started on social media, I built a really good following through just sharing good quality photos and having a good presence online, being communicative with people, and knowing good hashtags to use that would help make your work relevant for people. And everything has changed now, and so they're trying to compete more with TikTok, and so they want you to post reels. Hashtags are basically dead. That's actually the words that the CEO of Instagram used. And so now they limit you to like 3 or 5 hashtags, depending on what type of account you have. And there's ways to get around it, but they don't really help your post anymore, like they used to. And so in I I don't get on social media because I want lots of followers and lots of clicks, but because I am pursuing this professionally, if you have any aspirations of pursuing your photography professionally, you have to have a social media presence. And so you're going to have to produce content that captures people's attention. And so I decided to stop being stubborn with saying I'm just not interested in social media anymore, and saying, you know what, let me try doing some reels. I'll stay on the subjects that I like, and if it helps, great. If not, that's okay. I reminded myself that when I first started posting, I wasn't really too concerned about whether it got a bunch of likes or anything like that. I wanted to share the stuff that I was discovering, and that's what I really started to find as I actually got into doing videography, is that I started realizing that I was discovering again, and I was wanting to share the things that I was discovering versus looking for lots of clicks. Now, likes and comments and all of that are still important. You want that feedback to know that the content that you're posting is capturing attention. And like I said, if you're looking to do this professionally or even semi-professionally, then it is important that you have a good social media presence, and that people are seeing your work. But it's been a good challenge, not only in terms of capturing, but also in terms of editing. Editing, I didn't know at all how to use professional video editing software, and I still I wouldn't call myself an expert on Adobe Premiere is what I use. I would not call myself an expert on it, but I definitely know a lot more than I did a year ago, and I've gotten into a really comfortable workflow with that, and so I've enjoyed that process of figuring out how to make my videos look better, and uh, and so yeah, there's that. As far as like the challenge part of it goes, one of the things that you have with the modern cameras is that you have pre-capture available, which a lot of people are cheating for like in-flight shots. They spray and pray when they know that an insect is about to fly off, and they hope that the camera captures it through pre-capture in flight. And so I like the idea of capturing some things that you can't use pre-capture for. You can't spray and pray. You have to be precise, and you have to use skill in order to capture video. Video is a lot slower focusing, so there's definitely some things that make it a little bit more challenging. But hopefully, after going through some of the different notes that I'll give you guys can increase your odds with doing videography, particularly macro videography of fast moving and flying creatures. Most importantly, though, the thing that we want to do with photography is tell a story, and videography tells more of a story. If you think about a picture paints 1,000 words, a video paints millions of words, and so there's a lot of things that happen that when I was just doing photography, I wasn't even aware of what I was capturing. Um, like, let's go, for example, to this one here. For those of you that follow me, you had probably seen this video here. This is a dragonfly pooping. And I have captured shots. If you look at its tail, you can see the little turd dangling there, for lack of a better term. And I've captured a lot of still shots of this moment, and had never realized that that's what I was capturing. I always thought that it was a bent or a broken tail pincer. And so I just assumed that, because the dragonflies fight all the time, and they get into battles, and they tear off arms and legs, and they bite their eyes and their nose, and so it was just natural for me to assume that that was what was going on here. But as I watched the video, I noticed that, like I said, that it eventually dropped off, and as you can see, the little moment of relief and a little lift from the dragonfly once he lets it go. So that's a really good example of where I just really feel like that videography just tells a lot more of the story and lets you learn some things. And for those of us that do nature photography, we're also nature lovers. We're not just people that are trying to take pretty pictures. We actually want to learn about the creatures that we're seeing out there, and we like to learn about their habits and what they do. Maybe not necessarily recording them pooping, but if you don't, who knows if you're into that, go for it. But it's also, like I said, kind of cool to just capture something that, as far as I know, no one has ever captured this before. So I'm a first. All right, let's move on. Um, So this is a bee regurgitating a drop of nectar. And if you watch closely, you can see that she passes it from her front legs to her mid legs and then to the back legs. And I had captured a photograph, actually quite a few photographs of this years ago. And and I had always just assumed in the photo, it would always just be the drop right at its the tip of its mandibles, or with the front arms around it. And I just always assumed that it always happened as it backed away from the flower. It would hover there next to it, and I just assumed there was a little bit of excess nectar that was dribbling on its mouth, and it was just cleaning it off. But I went to in part of one of the things that I do with my photos is I sell photography to a lot of beekeepers are really big fans of my work, both commercially and artistically. And so anyway, I go to beekeeping conferences and I met a guy who was an expert on bees. And he was blown away by this picture that I had of that moment. And I shot it in it was actually one of the shots on the screen where I was telling you guys a little about me, where it's got the black background, which is done in camera. Shooting with flash and just set the settings to where the light freezes the subject and you get an underexposed background. And so anyway, he was just really blown away by that picture, and he explained to me what was actually happening. And I said, "Really?" I was like, "Okay, you know what? I think I've actually got some videos of bees hovering next to flowers, and let me see if that's if I've got video of that." And sure enough, I had a video. And so I do want to clear the record that I also think I have the distinction of being the first person to capture this action on video. And and the reason I say that is that there was a documentary about the bees, the secret lives of bees, that I think is on National Geographic right now. And they showed a slow motion video of a bumblebee doing this exact same thing. Honeybees and bumblebees do this, and this is another thing that I've learned through video and photography, is that as far as I know, only honeybees and bumblebees do this, and only honeybees and bumblebees form pollen sacs. All the other bees are pretty much solitary bees, and they don't take they do take pollen back, but they don't form the pollen sacs like that on their legs. They just collect it electrostatically on hairs, either on their legs or on their body somehow. And and so again, like I said, it's just a lot of unique things that you get to discover through doing video, and so that's definitely the things that excite me as I'm doing this and as I'm sharing what I'm capturing. It's allowing me to say, "Hey, wow, look at what I found," and I love doing that, and I love seeing the expressions on people's faces and seeing the reactions and seeing that it's not just me that's just blown away by this tiny world around me. So another thing that I've learned, another reason, and another part of the story, another addition to the story, um, is with dragonflies. I've learned that with bees, I was just showing you a honeybee. It's the females are the ones that go out and do all the foraging. The females are the ones that do all the work. But as you can see here on this video, the male is the one in the front, the female is the one to the back. Whose wings are flapping? Who's the one doing all the work here? It's the male. And so dragonflies do all the work when they are in an in-flight mating wheel. Now, I've actually found out, though, more recently, I captured this one I captured a couple weeks ago, and then I captured one this last weekend of a different species, and they were both actually beating their wings pretty fast. So they were both contributing to the flight. But I did find it interesting. I would have never known this species is a thornbush dasher, and I would have never known that the female just kind of just barely moves her wings to just kind of provide a little bit of balance, I guess. I would have assumed that they were both flapping their wings equally because this slowed down 10 times. And so, to the naked eye and to something this tiny, you don't really notice it. Um, Not all species do a mating wheel in flight. I think most species are able to do it. Most species will connect into a mating wheel in flight, but most species they fly off to someplace private. They go into a tree, they go onto a branch or something. There's a few species that just do it right there in the air for the whole world and Jesus to see. And I appreciate that because I love capturing unique moments like this. And but all species of Odonata, whether it's dragonflies or damselflies, do form this mating wheel. But like I said, only a few. I've only observed about a half dozen of the species of dragonflies actually hovering in flight and mating like that, and then flying off to start ovipositing around the pond. So a lot of neat things to observe and to document that are you don't tell as much of the story, like I said, if you're just capturing a photo. So um, another part of adding to the story, I've learned doing videography that not all pollen is created equal. Um, Pollen does come in a lot of different shapes, sizes, weights, and stickiness. And some types of pollen are a little more electrostatically charged than others. As you can see here in this video that I call the pollen blizzard, pollen from black-eyed Susans is particularly highly charged. You can see some of that pollen actually flying up to her and just pinging around in all different directions. And I had been following this bee from flower to flower, and I noticed that on these black-eyed Susans, if you notice, she doesn't have any pollen sacs built up. So I realized also that honeybees, even though they can form pollen sacs, they apparently don't form them on all flowers. The other thing is that, the electrostatic charge builds up on her as she starts flying around. The more that she flies and the more pollen that builds up on her, it's just like when you handle things that are electrostatically charged, the more that you handle them, the more that charge builds up on you. It happens with them too. And so as she flew around from flower to flower, I started noticing it more and more where you'd see this little blizzard of pollen as she would lift off. And this was one of the last ones that she lifted off. And so it really made me realize that and in observing over those couple of dozen flowers that she lifted off of, there was never once that she spit up a drop of nectar and passed it to the back legs. So A, she wasn't forming pollen sacs, and B, the pollen was doing a good enough job of sticking to her just through electrostatics. So I'm pretty convinced that it's not always necessary for them to form the pollen sacs, and so I'll definitely be looking forward to my next time getting with some of my bee experts at another beekeeping conference and kind of showing them some of these things that I've discovered. But you guys got to see it first. This one I just captured within the last couple of weeks. So, um, all right, moving on. Um, Let's talk about camera settings a little bit. This is another thornbush dasher, and there you would think that you would want to shoot in 4K, um, and I definitely do like to shoot in 4K. And I apologize, there's a train passing by that's blaring his horn, so you guys are probably going to hear that a little bit coming through. If it gets loud enough, I may pause for a second so that I can hear myself think. Um, but uh, But anyway, I do like to capture in 4K. The problem is that you're limited on consumer grade cameras to 120 frames per second when you're shooting in 4K. This video that you're looking at here with this Thornbush Dasher is captured in 4K. And so the colors are really intense on its eyes. I think you could probably tell a little bit of stronger color saturation on his eyes versus some of the previous videos. And the resolution is obviously higher, gives you room to crop in, so it's got all those pluses. But the downside, look at his wings, and you see what's happening with his wings. It almost looks like they're freezing out of in and out of phase with the camera shutter. And so what's happening is this particular dragonfly is beating his wings pretty close to 120 times per second. Now, what's really cool about this, going back to what I was talking about earlier, as far as the video telling more of a story and you're learning things, a Google search will tell you that dragonflies beat their wings about 30 to 50 times per second, and say nothing about more than that. So um, there's a lot of dragonflies that I can capture at 120 frames per second, and then I can further slow it down in apps like Topaz Video. Topaz Video allows you to do additional slow motion in a much cleaner way than just traditional slowing it down like half speed or something like that. You can actually go like 8x slow mo, and it adds additional frames to help make that movement smoother. But with something like this, it's not going to do a smooth job of that because, like I said, it's capturing this this jitteriness and this phasing, like I said, in freezing in that wide X position, and then in the straight out position and all of that. You can see it almost looks like multiple sets of wings at times. And like I said, that's happening because of it going in and out of phase with my camera at 120 frames per second. Now, with this same species, I'm going to go back 2 frames real fast just to show you guys again, just so you can see the difference. So this is the thornbush dasher mating pair, and you can see you're not seeing that phasing on this one, and this one was captured at 240 frames per second. Now the resolution is 1080p, and so I'm not able to crop in at all, which was fine because I captured that one really up close. But this one I captured a little bit further away and was able to crop in, and then I still have got really fine details and really good color and all of that. But again, just have that trouble with the wings. Now with bees, um, sometimes even 240 frames per second is too slow. Because bees beat their wings sometimes at 250 times per second. They beat their wings anywhere from about 200 to 250 times per second. So this was captured at 240 frames per second, and 1080p. And like I said, it still wasn't slow enough. You see how the wings freeze in certain positions? Well, the video just froze. Let me see. I think I may have forgotten to do the loop playback on the when I put that on there. But at any rate, yeah, like I said, you see how the wings kind of seem to freeze in a certain position and then right in the middle as a smudge. And so yeah, like I said, choosing the right frames per second, I do recommend when you're doing insects to go with 240 frames per second if you have it available on your camera. It can be definitely be too slow even for some insects like bees, but it'll give you a greater chance. Um, and and then just decide what your end goal is. If it doesn't really matter for you to get real clean, clear wings, you just want a really high detail image that you can show on a large screen or that you can crop in a little bit, then you may just want to go ahead and shoot 4K and just not worry about whether the wings look like smooth motion or not. Um, Another thing is that wing speed is not constant or consistent with most insects. At some moments they beat them a little faster, some moments a little slower, just depending on what they're doing. If they're hovering in place, if they're chasing another insect, if they're foraging, whatever they're doing. So just capture a lot of moments and at whatever settings that you go with, and then you'll raise the odds of capturing the result that you want. All right, so let's talk about the settings breakdown that I have here. 240 frames per second is going to be the best for slowing things. This is another example of the wings really freezing. This one I actually captured in 4K, and I don't know if you can tell, there's a little bit of not just wing freezing, but a little bit of jitteriness. This was experimenting with the shutter speed and thinking that maybe if I captured it at 120 frames per second, but I went with a faster shutter speed, I could introduce more frames in Topaz video and slow it down additionally that way. Because that at 120 frames per second, you slow it down to 24, and you end up with 5x slow-mo. And so I was thinking maybe I could slow it down to 10 or 20x in Topaz. But like I said, obviously what happened to the wings was that they just did some really weird things. And this is after slowing it down 4 times in Topaz. And then, like I said, it also revealed the jitteriness of shooting at 1/1600th of a second. So basically, what you want to think about when you're shooting your video with at the whatever frames per second rate, the standard for regular videos is that you shoot 2 times your frame rate should be your shutter speed. So at 120 frames per second, you should be doing 240 1/240th of a second or 1/250th of a second, whatever your camera allows as far as your shutter speed. That's going to give you good smooth motion. What I have found with the smaller, with these insects, where you don't want necessarily the look of smooth motion, you want the look of detailed motion, about 4 times the frame rate is better. So if you're shooting at 240 frames per second, um, get up there closer to about 1/1000th of a second. If you're shooting at 120 frames per second, then 1/600th or 1/500th of a second is probably going to be um, fast enough. But again, you also have to consider, how much detail do you want to be able to see in those wings. I will say that one 400th of a second, like most of this one is at 1/1600th of a second. If I go back here, I was shooting here at 1/400th of a second, and let me pause and you can see that you can freeze wings pretty good even at 1/400th of a second shutter speed. The freezing of wings really has a lot more to do with having good light and a good angle to the light. This was right at dusk, and the light was hitting him just perfectly with some reeds in the background, and so it was really lighting up his wings well. And so even at a lower shutter speed like that, I was able to freeze motion. And of course, with the dragonfly, they don't beat their wings as fast as the bees, so that's another thing to consider there. But but yeah, like I said, you start at about 4 times your frame rate on your shutter speed, and then kind of adjust from there depending on what kind of results you're getting to get fine tune it to the best results for the situation that you're shooting in, and for the results that you want from the final product. Um, the As far as the codecs go, that was another thing that I really had to learn. I didn't really understand the difference in the different codecs, and codecs are basically compression, the types of compression that you're and the types of bit depth and how high resolution your camera is shooting at. And so with Sony, I've found that the best setting is the SI setting, and I is basically means intra, and it's a type of compression that it compresses each frame individually instead of compressing them as a group. And when it compresses as a group, if you're watching standard motion video, you're not going to notice it, and you're not really going to care. But what it does is it makes when you're using standard compression codecs with groups of images, it's going to do a much better job of reducing the file size. When you go for the SI, this intra type of setting, what you're going to do is you're going to compress each frame individually, so you end up with a much larger file size, but a much more detailed every single image. And so, because we're capturing just a few seconds of time to turn that few seconds of time into a lot of seconds or even minutes, um, you're okay. You'll be okay on your file sizes, but more importantly, you're going to be able to get much more detail shots. You're going to be able to get much higher quality images and video to work with when you go into edit or when you go into Topaz to try to slow it down a little bit more. So I've got the equivalent of the Sony SI for three different cameras there. Canon, it's called All Eye. It's in their menu. In Nikon, depending on the type of camera you have or one of the older ones, it'll either be called N RAW or ProRes. And then on Panasonic, it's called All Intra. So um, those are definitely some things that you'll want to make sure are set up correctly on your camera, and those should allow you to capture the slow motion and make sure that you're getting good detail on the subjects that you're shooting. Um, and too fast of a shutter speed, like I said, as you notice in this video, too fast of a shutter speed will result in jittery playback. So definitely think about that, and keep don't get up to like 2,000th of a second or 2,500th of a second. You're just going to end up with very jittery playback and not any better freezing. The frame rate is much more important um, for shooting video. Um, Let me see. Oh, also, I do really high as far as your camera equipment goes. I highly recommend making sure that you have a camera or lens that has on Sony it's called full-time DMF. Other cameras call it other things. Some I think still call it DMF, but they call it other equivalent to that. I think some call it um, autofocus plus manual focus. I think that's what Canon does. But basically, it's make sure that you have the ability to take over your autofocusing because when you're dealing with tiny subjects like this that move very quickly, even when they're hovering, they're still kind of bouncing around. And so your camera might struggle a little bit, might accidentally grab the background and not want to come back. What full-time DMF does on Sony and what the equivalent does on other cameras is it allows you to use autofocus and then take over that autofocus with manual focus by just adjusting the manual focusing ring, and it'll pull it forward or push it back to where your subject is actually at, and then it'll help you find your subject a little bit better, and then hopefully stay on the subject if you've got good continuous autofocus there. All right. So that's about all that I have for tonight. And I finally kept it at 45 minutes, I think. But I do have a workshop coming up, as I mentioned, the weekend of September 26th. If you scan that QR code there, it'll take you to the registration page for the workshop. It's not a cheap workshop, but it's 2 days, and the workshop does include accommodations. I'll be setting up a little glamping setup for the first time. I've had about three people that have been to at least three workshops. And the most common thing that they have said, and one, you guys know Mika
Mhm.
Giger.
I,
She's been 4 or 5 times, and she's ended up camping the last couple of times. And I had another guy camping as well at the last time that she was there. And it made such a great experience for us that we're there together. We ate meals together. We went out nighttime bugging, shooting insects at night, and setting up a UV light and attracting moths and other stuff. And it was so much more complete of an experience that I said I need to do this. And make it a part of the whole experience. And when I asked people, the next morning, everybody was like, "Yeah, I would love that." Instead of having to drive into town and stay at a hotel, so I've created a price that includes staying. I'll be setting up a large yurt that'll be about an 8 to 12 person yurt, and if I have enough people sign up, I'm capping it at eight for the total number of people there, and I average about 4 to 6 people at workshops, but I've definitely had as many as 10, but I think eight is a good safe number for the way that we're going to do this. So if you are interested, definitely don't wait, but you can save $500 if you've never been before between now and July 4th. Have used the promo code happiness 500. Those of you that have attended before, just shoot me an email and I'll send you a special promo code and special offer, depending on if you've been once before or if you've been several times before. I'll make it a even little better deal there. So I would love to see you guys. I would love for you guys to come out and actually experience in person how I do what I do, how I see the right moments, and hopefully you guys can capture. We won't. We'll spend. I will be more than happy to spend some time teaching you guys video, but for this workshop, what I really want is for you guys to just really get a lot of home runs on still shots, and because that takes practice, that takes getting comfortable with your timing and your sense of being focusing in the right place at the right time, and uh, and then capturing that moment before it disappears. But yeah, like I said, just shoot me an email if you're interested, if you've attended prior and you'd like to be a part of this experience. It's going to be basically Friday evening. We'll do a session shooting at the pond. And then Friday night, we'll do a session shooting, doing the nighttime photography. Saturday morning, a session at the pond. Saturday evening, another session at the pond. And then Sunday morning, one last session at the pond, and hopefully you get a lot of really cool dragonfly shots and a lot of other cool stuff beyond that. So
Okay, before I jump into closing out the session, there was one question in there. It was the very first um, video of the bee, and it looked like, well, I should say it looked like it, I think it was dropping pollen from its
yeah.
feet. Can you, just for behavior wise, do you know why? Glenda was curious. Do you know why they do that or what he was doing?
Um, I don't think it was deliberate. I think so when they fly, I mean, they do clean themselves off. I don't think when I say it wasn't deliberate, I don't think it was deliberately trying to just leak pollen or
Oh, okay.
spread or share breadcrumbs. I think she was just cleaning herself off. And if you notice, like when they spit up the drop of nectar, they probably just have certain habits of where they rub their hands together and their feet together as just part of the process of preparing to go on to the next flower and collect more pollen. And so I think that there's an element of that, and then some of it because she just had so much pollen on the ends of her legs, some of it just started falling off, and then also the electrostatic charge I'm sure was sending some of it just kicking off naturally, and so yeah. There's a little bit of all that from what I can tell, and so that's one that like I said, I look forward to showing that to some of my true bee experts and seeing what their reaction is to it and what they think, if there's any additional information that they can give me about that, or if they say, "Oh wow, give me that video so that I can study that
Yeah.
more."
And there's a lady in here by the name of Stephanie, and she said that I don't know if you know her personally, but she's been following you for a while. She's a
Yeah.
She's a
Hi, Stephanie.
beekeeper. She's a beekeeper. And I'm just going to read this note because people watching on video won't see your note, Stephanie. She says, honeybees bring pollen back to the hive as a protein source for
Yeah,
feeding young. It's good for us when they are messy because that's when pollination happens.
yeah,
Speaking of pollination, what I found kind of
that's right.
fascinating, I like video. I really do. I don't do it enough, and when I do it, it's clumsy. But when the pollen was flying off, I think it
Hmm.
was the black-eyed Susan, one of
Yeah,
the flowers. It was just I mean, you're it's hard to see with the naked eye. So with
you
that
don't
video,
see it with the naked
yeah, I
eye.
was
Yeah,
like,
you
I
you
mean, I
do
have,
not.
and I've got thousands of flowers in my front yard, and I don't think maybe with wind, something might fall off, or if I brushed up against it, but I don't, yeah. So, um,
Yeah,
that was fascinating for me. All
yeah.
right,
Yeah,
thank you
you don't
for.
see you also don't see that drop of nectar. I mean, I actually I see it now. I used to not see it because you don't know what you're looking
You're
for,
looking at.
and it
Mhm.
happens like that.
Yeah, yeah.
That video that I showed you was slowed down 30x, the one that you guys watched on this presentation where she spits up the drop of nectar. That was slowed down 30x. So it happens so fast that you don't see it with the naked eye unless, like I said, you know what you're watching for. And now I see it this little glisten all the time, and I know exactly what just happened. But yeah, like I said, you don't really see it until you see it like this. And so yeah, like I said, that's the thing that I love about shooting this and capturing these moments is that yeah, it's my version of exploring the world.
Yeah. Well, thank you for taking us along. Y'all, I can vouch for Jose's workshop. I went out there. It's been a couple of years, Jose. It may have been one of the first ones you did.
Yeah, yeah. You came out to either the first or the second one. I know it was
Yeah.
in the first
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
I think it was the second one. I think you missed the first one, and then we did another one that fall that you came out to.
Yeah, it's a good. It was only a couple of hours, probably 3 or 4 hours.
Mhm.
It was a good day. It was so a
Yeah.
3 day workshop would be a lot of fun. It gives you a lot of time to practice. You guys, his ranch is beautiful. You got to keep it. It's a nice little pond, lots of different varieties of dragonflies. And I personally am a fan of dragonflies. So it's kind of mesmerizing and it's not hard to get, it's hard for me to shoot them, photograph
Mhm.
them, but it's not hard to see them or have lots of moving targets to practice on.
Mhm.
So I highly encourage you, if you're slightly interested or you speak your interest, reach out to him and talk to him
Mhm.
about it. And if you
Oh,
get,
and one thing we didn't have when you were last there, we didn't have our barn dominium built out, so we have that, and so we've got, running water and electricity,
get that.
working bathroom and shower, so people that spend the night can do that. Then
Okay.
we also have RV connections, so if somebody
Okay.
has an RV,
Yeah.
I've had more than one person just bring their RV and hook it up and stay that way. And I'm more than happy to share the electricity
Okay.
with you there. And so yeah,
Okay.
there's
Well,
ways.
I'm hoping there's a few people in here. I know that a couple of people have RVs, and
Mhm.
we already got her to come to Texas once. Maybe we can get her to come back. All right,
There you
Jose, I'm
go.
going to close out this session. Thank you so much for spending your
Okay.
Wednesday night with us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. Next week, Ariel Faith will be here to present Do You See It? Visual Intelligence. She calls it VQ, Visual Intelligence for Creatives and Photographers. You'll have a great night, and I hope that we'll see you again soon.